Hello class, my name is Joshua Franco and I am part of Group 5 for this group presentation. The area of focus that my group was assigned was mental health. With this in mind, we chose to do this assignment on the topic of anxiety with the focus on Mexican and Greek cultures. To start us out, I will be covering the biomedical definition of anxiety and its effects on the body, as well as its history and impact on the world. For slide 1, I want to start out with the biomedical definition of what anxiety is. The biomedical definition of anxiety is defined as a persistent, excessive fear or worry in situations that are not threatening. This definition is directly found from the National Alliance on Mental Illness website. This health issue is typically associated with a disorder such as generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, phobia-related disorder, social anxiety disorder, and even including separation anxiety disorder. To describe anxiety, it is one of the most common mental health issues in the United States. It can be described as a feeling of intense fear that prevents us from doing activities in our day. This information also comes from the National Alliance on Mental Illness website. Anxiety is something that is experienced every day. It's found in situations such as traffic on the way to work, sleeping through an alarm, having to present a speech, or even needing to take a test. There's several different symptoms and signs associated with anxiety. Some of these symptoms may include feelings of dread, tenseness, trouble controlling feelings of worry, increased heart rate, and sweating accompanied by twitches. These are some of the most common symptoms associated with anxiety. These symptoms really depend on the severity of the health issue per individual. Anxiety can also have several kinds of effects on the body. It can have negative effects on the body over time. It can cause structural changes in different parts of the human brain, can cause damage by suppressing the immune system, and anxiety has also been shown to alter the heart rate and blood pressure by either raising or lowering it from a normal level. As for treatment, there isn't a specific type of medication or treatment that is guaranteed to treat someone's anxiety. This is a result of there being several types of anxiety disorders that all require different treatments. One common form of treatment used is psychotherapy. This is a form of treatment that may help reduce the severity of anxiety. This type of therapy is known as talk therapy and is usually tailored towards the person's personal anxiety and needs. Cognitive behavioral therapy is another example of a type of psychotherapy. This is where the person is exposed to scenarios pertaining to anxiety and are taught how to think and react differently to the situation. Another form of treatment that may help with anxiety is medication. The medication used to help treat anxiety is usually in the form of antidepressants, beta blockers, and anti-anxiety medicine. One final type of treatment that may help treat someone's anxiety is support/stress management groups. Now moving on to the history of anxiety. Anxiety has been around for as long as the cognitive mind. It is a reaction or emotion that arises when faced with a tough situation, problem, or worry. There isn't much research or notation of anxiety in the past, but some of the earliest writings on anxiety are from the Greek Roman times in 460 BC to 370 AD. The reasoning as to why there's difficulty exactly pinpointing the origins of anxiety is because of the major difficulties of classifying and defining what anxiety actually is. Through the eras, anxiety has been defined under other terms such as depression, stress, worry, fear, panic disorders, and mental health issues in general. From the ancient Greek era up until the 19th century, anxiety has not been classified as its own mental health issue, but rather as a side effect to other health issues, cited by Kroc. These cases of anxiety were being reported and studied long ago, but typically were written under different names, which have been a major difficulty in properly classifying anxiety. Major area where anxiety was clearly defined was in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. In DSM-5, anxiety is defined as the anticipation of future threat, but is clearly distinguished from fear. In the article written by Kroc, it is mentioned that the history of anxiety and its disorders are fairly recent because it has been classified as either something else or as symptoms of another health issue. Croke also mentions that anxiety itself was hardly known as an illness or disease before the 19th century. In Greco-Roman times, anxiety was typically labeled or grouped together as a phobia. A phobia is currently defined as a type of anxiety disorder. The example of this phobia, written by Hippocrates, was of a man named Nicanor who feared the sounds of a flute girl at a drinking party. He mentioned that the fear of this sound would be so severe at night, but that during the day, the fear was no longer prevalent. Another one of the earliest mentions of anxiety being classified as a disorder arose in the Tusculan Disputations around 106 BC to 43 BC. Cicero wrote that affliction, worry, and anxiety are considered disorders due to the relationship between the troubled mind and diseased body. As we can see, anxiety has a history that goes as far back as the human mind. There wasn't really a spread of this health issue as it has always been prevalent in humanity. Many philosophers and physicians mentioned early on that anxiety was mostly diagnosed under other classifications or disorders, so this is why it is difficult to pinpoint the exact origin of anxiety. This concludes my portion of the presentation.
Hi everyone, my name is Adriana Gallardo and I am going to be presenting on the Mexican curandero/curandera culture. So to begin, an overview of the Mexican curandero/curandera culture, the economical perspective, the curandero and curandera economy is a little difficult to comprehend because there's not a lot of evidence on this, but we do know that some curanderos and curanderas charge for their services while others really don't, but that wasn't really specified in the research. The geographical perspective, curanderos and curanderas are found all over the world. They originated in Mexican culture and they're mainly found in Mexico. But as some of my research showed up, they're found all over the world. They're here in the US, they're in Africa, in Europe. Um, Other naturalist healer cultures have sprouted from the curandero culture in Mexico. The ecological perspective, curanderos and curanderas natural plants and herbs for their healings and rituals. They're very in touch with nature and they're connected to Mother Nature in more than one way. They do a lot of things for Mother Nature. So how do curanderos and curanderas view and describe anxiety? So anxiety is called nervios, which is characterized by a state of bodily and mental unrest. So literally nervios translates to nerves or being nervous. Anxiety is also seen as there being something wrong with the person's spirit. So the curanderos and curanderas are very big on healing a person's spirit. So when a person is going through anxiety or another mental illness, it's seen as being something wrong with their spirit, not really their mental health. Anxiety can also be caused by receiving the evil eye from somebody, or through witchcraft, or the envy of others. So this is very big in the Mexican curandero/curandera culture. Um, they believe that somebody just wishing you bad or just like looking at you wrong, evil eye, is what causes this anxiety. So curanderos and curanderas use mostly non-traditional treatments for anxiety. I read in some of my research that a lot of people do seek therapy and curanderos at the same time. So some people do mix them, but it's not very traditional for curanderos and curanderas to use traditional treatment. They do a lot of phytotherapeutic treatment, which is herbalism. That's mainly what they use. They also do dream analysis and monitoring of dream. The use of hallucinogenic drugs like mushrooms is also a big part of treatment used by curanderos. Some cultural stigmas that affect individuals with a health issue, and stigmas that may be seen within the community. So mental illnesses, like anxieties, are connected to the individual's spirit and soul. That's very big in the curandero and curandera culture. And it's mostly seen as being caused by the evil eye or witchcraft. But in Mexican culture overall, mental illnesses are not widely accepted. Um, they don't typically believe that somebody can have a mental illness. They see it more as a spiritual problem that can be solved by cleansing the spirit and praying. So this is done through those rituals or cleansings that can be done with herbs, sometimes with even an egg, but it's not very big in the Mexican curandero culture. And that is all for my slides. Thank you.
Ancient Greece overview. Economical. Ancient Greece economy is still to this day difficult to understand because of minimal evidence. Goods were produced and exchanged locally and through long-distance trade. They had monetary systems for their exchanges. Geographical. This ancient civilization was located in southeastern Europe along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. The region it was located in helped influence their government as well as their culture. It was divided into multiple city-states due to 80% of the Greek mainland being mountainous. Transportation was mainly by sea. Ecological. The work of Hippocrates demonstrates the effect of the environment on health. How did they define and describe anxiety? Ancient Greeks had little understanding of anxiety, however, it was still acknowledged. It can be seen in many ancient Greek sources, such as Hippocratic Corpus, a collection of Greek medical texts. Hippocrates and many others believe that mental disorders, such as anxiety, came from issues within the brain. The practitioners of medicine and what traditional treatments they used to help heal individuals with anxiety. The common approach for anxiety was detachment and logic, similar to today's cognitive behavioral therapy. The Stoics, who were a group of Greek philosophers, would suggest attempting to focus on what one could control. Tending to one's body was another approach. For example, better diets, habits, and exercising. Cultural stigmas in ancient Greece that affect individuals with the health issue, anxiety, and the stigmas that may be seen within the community. Mental illnesses such as anxiety were often connected to religion and gods. Individuals with mental illnesses were believed to be punished by the gods or being possessed by demons. The individuals affected with the health issue anxiety or other health issues were often locked up, shunned, or in rare occasions death, mostly due to fear because the community believed the gods were mad at the individuals affected and did not want the same fate.
So the next couple of slides are going to discuss some aspects of both the Mexican community and the Greek community and show how they're similar in handling anxiety and also how they contrast in handling anxiety. Our first aspect is the economic aspect of each community. So in the Mexican community, we have that they go through many economical problems that lead to anxiety. Problems like schooling, bills, and medical assistance. So most of these communities have first-generation college students, and this brings a lot of financial burden to the student. They don't know how to complete the FAFSA. They don't know how to get financial aid, or maybe they don't even are even eligible for financial aid because they're undocumented or just come from poor neighborhoods, so they can't afford to go to college, things like that. Bills can start to add up, and this can have a lot of anxiety-inducing environments for kids and also the parents because they're not able to pay for bills, mortgages, rent, things like that. And also, a lot of the jobs that are are acquired by undocumented communities are not high paying. So we have jobs that don't include a 401k or medical assistance or things that come with a high salary job. And this can also be stress inducing. And no residence also means no medical help in this country. So if you don't have an address, if you're homeless, things like that, it's very difficult to get medical assistance. In our Greek communities, they used to have a monetary system, which is like a bartering system. So if I had a cow and I wanted a bundle of wheat, I would trade you a cow for a bundle of wheat and things like that. So if you didn't have anything that you owned or were able to trade, that basically meant that you were poor. And so the government tried to help fund the economy, and Greece has been climbing its way out of an economic crisis. But due to its financial downfall, over a third of Greece's 10 million person population is in poverty. So again, this is a financial burden that a lot of Greek families face. And this can lead to a lot of anxiety because they just don't have the funds to be able to live a happy life, to be able to live a safe life, and to be able to live a healthy life. Another aspect that we can talk about in both communities is our environmental aspects. In our Mexican communities, a lot of times they live in poor neighborhoods where there's lack of clean water, lack of health care, lack of clean air, and poor living situations. So a lot of the times the government will try to put refineries in our poor neighborhoods, and which leads to lack of clean air and things like that. And so not only that you have dirty air, but you also don't have a lot of medical assistance being in these poor communities. So it's just two toxic things coming together can become a burden in these families and lead to a bunch of stress and anxiety and things like that. We see a lot of these similarities in the Greek communities, as there's water pollution, lack of health care, air emissions from transport and electricity and power stations, and overexploitation of water resources. So there's not a lot of resources in these communities. These resources are scarce, and we become stressed fighting over how to live healthy lives. We're all competing over the same water, the same dirty air, just to keep our families healthy and just to have things to drink, things to eat, and stuff like that. And we're in our environments, we're lacking the ability to do such things. And our third aspect that we're going to talk about is the cultural aspect and how they deal with anxiety. So in our Mexican communities, as described in the slide before, there's a stigma that they have to hide their feelings and that these mental illnesses don't exist. So if you know any Hispanic parents or even Mexican parents, they don't believe in anxiety. If you come up to them and say, "Mommy, I think I have anxiety. I want to go see a therapist," they're going to say, "What are you even talking about? You don't need a therapist. I had it worse than you, and I don't have anxiety. I came out fine." And these are common stories in the Mexican community. They will disregard your feelings and not give you medical attention because they believe that those things don't exist, that we're crazy for even thinking that we have anxiety. Mexican parents are also less likely to put their kids in treatment and go to therapy. And a lot of the times they believe in what is called brujeria or witchcraft to get away these bad feelings and these burdens from them. So they'll do things like burning sage, praying to virgins, and things like that to try to help alleviate these anxieties. And sometimes it does work, but sometimes the problem is much worse. The anxiety is much worse, and you actually need to go to a therapist, or you need, pills to help combat the anxiousness in yourself. Mexican parents will not allow their children or even themselves to seek the help that they need. In Greek communities, anxiety was not known, it was something that they dealt with. And ancient Greeks knew it as Hippocratic corpus, not anxiety at the time. So it also just had a different name, but they didn't have medical treatment like we do now for things like that. It was more like a spiritual battle that you had to fight. And those are the three aspects and how they affected anxiety in each community.
How are these traditional practices integrated into American society? Who is most likely to use these treatments in the United States? Not only is it a growing practice in the United States, but it has grown over the past 40 years worldwide. Herbalists and holistic doctors are growing professions due to the influx of herbal usage. In the US, the use of herbs in 1991 was less than 5%, but now it has continuously grown 30% per year. Which cultures utilizes the practices from the indigenous and the Greeks? Mexican culture. Today, herbal medicine is heavily relied on in Mexican cultures to treat nervios, which is a vast term to describe many different emotional states that alter the quality of life. Nervios are several conditions that are described to be as sporadic, customary, and explosive. Within Mexico, there are 92 herbs used to treat nervios. Within a study, researchers tested mice on the effectiveness of a group of herbs and the anoxylytic activity. Anoxylytic activity is the tranquility activity. The isolated active compounds described in this review are different chemical nature, mainly triterpenes, animals that are found in animals, plants, fungi, and monoterpenes are found in essential oils extracted from plants, fruits, vegetables, spices, and herbs. And flavonoids, which are found in apples, grapes, teas, coca, and cherries, have antioxidant properties. Herbal medicine is used in the form of teas, aromatherapy, and massage therapy. These remedies are passed on through generation to generation. In Greek culture, today, preventative measures resemble Greek traditional practices for anxiety. In order to prevent and treat anxiety, one must engage in physical activity, maintain a healthy diet, and have a supporting environment. Since we now are used to working a sedentary lifestyle and working indoors, just getting up and moving around as well as soaking in the sunlight is essential. And also avoiding sugary, high-fat processed foods, because you always need to remember that whatever you feed your body, you also feed your brain. This traditional practice may be more effective than pharmaceutical treatments. People with high risk of anxiety implement these practices in their everyday lives. So why are these traditional treatments used to treat the health issues in these communities instead? There has been new limitation in the production of synthetic pharmaceutical production, causing a need for the implementation of herbal medicine. The use of pharmaceutical drugs has presented adverse effects that can be avoided with the use of herbal medicine. The use of CAM is widely utilized for supplemental relief. CAM is complementary and alternative medicine. There are 5 categories of CAM: alternative medical systems, which are Ayurveda, naturopathy, homeopathy, acupuncture, Chinese and Oriental medicine, biologically based therapies, which are vitamins, herbs, special diets, mind-body therapies, which is meditation, biofeedback, hypnosis, imagery, prayer, and energy healing, which is Reiki, electromagnetic based therapies, and manipulative and body-based therapies, and chiropractic and massage therapies. So overall, herbal medicine and traditional medicine can be more effective than pharmaceutical drugs because it's natural and it's not always the best option to use pharmaceutical products. Thank you.
These are the references for this assignment. Thank you.